Hi everyone, this is Dr. Katherine.Kelly, and I am wondering, is your soul and your ego fighting it out right now? Are they wrestling? Are you feeling like you're being torn apart? Are you feeling like old stuff is coming up? Are you feeling like old fears and old things you processed years ago? Do you feel like they're coming up? So I've had lots of people saying that they feel like they're two different people right now, that part of them feels like they have a lot of faith in the future and that they're going forward, and their other part of them is feeling like it's pulling them back and yanking them and feeling like, oh my gosh, my old fears are coming up, my old stuff's coming up. I know I've been feeling a lot of that. And if I didn't know better, I'd think Mercury was still in retrograde because there's a lot of swirling going on and a lot of kind of want to go forward but can't go forward. A lot of kind of this thing going on that, come here but stay away to the future. And so, we have to think about the fact that the ego part of us, and I'm not saying narcissistic ego, I'm saying the ego part of this, the protective part of us, the part of us that really tries to react and tries to it really protect. Our ego is there to protect us. We have to think about the fact that sometimes our ego tries to protect us from growth and change and evolution as well. Now, why does it do that? It's because growth and change and evolution are very uncomfortable, that it does not feel good to grow. Excuse me, it doesn't feel good to move forward. It does feel good to move forward, but in the process of moving forward, it doesn't always feel so good. So it's that tug, it's that push and pull, it's that wrestling match, it's that fighting it out, duking it out kind of thing, that there's usually a part of us as we're moving forward that feels really good about it, and then there's a part of us that is cringing and kind of shrinking back and going, oh gosh, what is that? So we have to really think about the fact that that discomfort that we are feeling between the push and pull of the sides of us, the ego and the soul part of us, is part of the process, and we have to move through it. So if we think about the ego as being the most protective part of us, that is why we react. That's why we have emotions. That's why we kind of try to shield ourselves from that kind of discomfort and that stuff. It's like anytime we're feeling uncomfortable, what do we want to do? We want to get away from it, except that emotions are very seductive. Now, our soul has a way of getting our attention, and emotions are one of the ways that it does that. And so I know for me, just in the last few days, there's been stuff coming up with purchasing this new property. And, in the grand scheme of things, when I look at what's going on, it's not that big of a deal. It's an expense. It's stuff like that you expect when you decide you're going to go into a new endeavor like this. But the thing is, boy, there's been a lot churning. And when I was able to step back yesterday, I stepped back, did some journaling before I went to the gym. I realized that this is just basically me, my ego part of me trying to protect from discomfort. But by protecting from discomfort, it's also trying to keep me from moving forward. It's trying to keep me from evolving. So when you feel that fear, you have to actually step back and discern, is this really a warning sign that something's wrong and I shouldn't be following through with whatever I'm wanting to do? Or is that fear basically a heads up for us trying to realize that, okay, we've got to consciously choose, consciously evolve. We have to move through that doorway of evolution. Now, with clients, a lot of times I'll tell them that as they're moving through stuff, that we get this juncture. And so there's this, I have to do this so I can make sure I see it on the screen. There's this juncture that we could go down this road, which is the familiar road. It's the road that we know. It's the road that it's the known entity. It's the road covered or the road traveled that we know. Or we can go this road, and this road is less known, but we think and we know that there's something better out there. So when we're at that juncture, when we're at this point right here where we're having to make that decision, are we going to go the old way and just keep doing what we're doing? Or are we going to go this new way, knowing that there's something out there that is trying to pull us forward? It's beckoning to us. It's pulling us. It's inviting us. But there's more fear on this path than there is this path, because this is a known entity. Even if it's a terrible path, we still know what it looks like and feels like. If this path is unknown, some people are so afraid to go down the road less traveled that they never go down it and they never evolve. So there is so much unknown on this planet. There's so much unknown in our lives. We try so hard to control everything, and yet really the the grand scheme of things, there's not very much that's controllable. So we have to think about that whole idea of, are we willing to take that leap and take that move and move through that doorway of evolution? Are we ready to and willing to move through that threshold that will get us to that next step? Now, for years, I've heard this whole idea of you were one decision away from making one decision away. I just got a message that someone feels like they're stunk at that juncture. And this is why I'm doing this video right now, because we have to move through that doorway, and we have to really get ourselves to understand that discomfort always accompanies evolution. Always, always, always. And I got a big old wake-up call yesterday, because I woke up and I was just churning with a lot of discomfort and a lot of fear and a lot of, what if I, sign this contract to purchase this property, and then something blows up, and the HVAC unit over there is pretty old, and so I had it assessed, and they said it's probably going to be $10,000 to $12,000 to get it fixed, and that was like, oh, I can't do that expense. And yet, in the grand scheme of things, I stepped back and realized, wait, that's just one more way my ego is trying to keep me from moving through the doorway of evolution. So I went to the gym. I ran into someone who, he seems to be a very wise soul. We end up running into each other, having these wonderful spiritual conversations. We go our own ways, and we both feel better. So it's really kind of a nice little perk of the day a lot of times. But he kind of kicked me in the butt and basically said, I know you're going to do this. I know you're going to move through this. That's who you are. You're going to move through this. And so we have to really challenge ourselves to ask, are we willing to move through that doorway of evolution? Because that fear is, a lot of acronyms are out there about fear. And the one that I hear the most is false evidence against reality. But the one that I created years ago was forging earnestly ahead regardless. And I had to remind myself of that yesterday, because if I don't forge earnestly ahead regardless, I am not going to evolve. I'm not going to expand and align, which is my theme for the year. So we have to, again, be discerning for whether that ego part of us is trying to protect us or keep us from our evolution. So if your ego is fighting with your soul, you have to spend some time really going, wait a minute, what is the real story here? Because our ego will make up stories. It will catastrophize. It will awfulize. It will create all of these horrible scenarios for what may happen if we choose to move forward. But then we have to step back, which is what I did yesterday. We have to step back and go, yeah, but what are the negatives or the costs of me not moving forward? And so we have to weigh out, and yes, this juncture is comfortable, but it can be an awful, awful place if we already know that it's mediocre at best. Or we can use this path to kind of take us into the unknown, but knowing that there's something out there, there's something we can create for ourselves. So if you're feeling like you are wrestling with yourself, if there's a part of you that says, oh yeah, I really need to do this, I want to do this, I want to move forward, and then there's that other part of you that's like, yeah, I'm really scared to do this, I'm going to stay comfortable in my discomfort, you have to weigh that out. Now, I had a client in here yesterday who she's been here about 3 years. She's been coming about 3 years, had a lot of stuff to work through from past. What she came for was actually to get on track with eating and with going off of smoking and things like that. She's still doing those things, and we were talking about it yesterday, and she was noticing that she's just kind of not motivated. She's not there yet, but she wants to be there. And so we ended up talking about how her soul and her ego are wrestling right now, and she got it. She realized, wait a minute, this is her next step in her juncture of making that conscious decision to move forward. So, we do have to think about, is it really that we're being protective of ourselves in a positive way when we don't move forward? Or is it our ego that's trying to block our growth? Is it our ego that's trying to block our evolution? So sometimes we have to, again, just take the leap and decide we're going to move through that door regardless and see what happens, because the fact is the universe is going to help guide our way through whatever we're supposed to experience so that we can evolve. So think about that. What part of you is wrestling with the other part of you? Is your soul telling you, yes, 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 let's move forward, and your ego is telling you, let's not do this. That's too scary. That's too hard. That's going to take too much time. It's going to take too much money. It's going to take too much whatever. do some evaluation about that, because you have to decide whether or not you're going to move through that doorway of evolution. So would love to hear your thoughts. I know that there are a lot of people that are feeling stuck out there, so thank you for your comment. Think about how you can move through, and actually think about what that doorway of evolution represents for you, because if you can kind of metaphorically look at that and think, oh wait, what does that represent for me? It may help you sort of dismantle the fears and pull apart all of that fear talk that your ego creates for you, and help you understand that, wait a minute, if I just do a timeout and stop that wrestling match, it may be exactly what I need in order to move forward. So that's what I did. Like I said yesterday, I woke up feeling it. The first thing I did was grab my journal. I sat there writing for a little while, dismantled a lot of it, went to the gym. Running into that person really helped kind of dismantle more of it and kind of give me that little kick in the tush that I already know to keep moving forward. But it's that whole idea that we have to stop wrestling, and we have to identify what's our soul. What is our soul telling us? Which is that gut reaction. It's that sweet spot. It's that knowingness deep within us. And a lot of times when our ego is chattering and blathering on, we can't hear it as much. So we have to get much more quiet to ground ourselves and hear that, which was hard for me yesterday. I actually, when I got to the office yesterday, I turned off all of the sound, even my sound machine, and I meditated for about 15 minutes just to ground myself so that I could hear myself much more clearly. And then I was fine, but I had to tune in. I had to hear my soul louder than I heard the chatter. And that is one of the things I'd like to really encourage you all to do, is do whatever it takes to ground yourself so you can hear that sweet spot. That's I call it the sweet spot of the soul, that deepness within you, that voice within you. And then the chatter is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller to the point where you can actually hear and turn up the volume on your soul so that you don't hear that chatter. Now, fear can be loud. It can be obnoxiously loud. And so that's why we have to learn that our soul is the most important part of our guidance system. It is our GPS system if we allow it to be. So we've got to tune in. We've got to, muffle out that ego part of us that is just, it's there to protect us, but not so much. We have to think about the fact that our ego is really trying hard. It tries hard to protect us, but sometimes from the wrong things. So that's another very key piece of this to think about, is we have to think about whether our fear is really there to protect us. What do dogs do when they are afraid? They bark or bite. Is that really protective? Sometimes no, not so much. It can really hurt things if we bark or bite at our situation. So again, lots of wrestling going on, and it, like I said, I would not doubt it. If I didn't already know Mercury was out of retrograde, I would have thought that it still is, because it's been very uncomfortable for a lot of people. And I have a friend up in Maine who I talked to on Sunday, and she's wrestling, and I brought that up to her, that her soul is wrestling with that ego part of her. It's trying to keep her from moving forward. Now she's going through a lot of kind of end of life stuff with her partner, and so it's been very challenging for her, but I thankfully, I guess I said the right words, because she said it really helped her to remember that it was her ego and her soul that were kind of duking it out and wrestling, and keeping her from realizing that this was just a phase of life. And so whatever the circumstance, and we have so many circumstances out there that just pull us off of our alignment, but whatever that circumstance is, we have to remember that if we can step out of the discomfort, the ego part of us that's trying to sound the alarms, and really look at the soul part of ourselves, that groundedness, that alignment piece, and just get quiet enough to listen, that we are going to hear the words we need in order to move forward. And we're going to get that wisdom. That's what soul is all about, is tapping into our ancient wisdom, tapping into that part of us that we need so much in order to move forward. And you know, I watch patterns. Clients know that I watch patterns between all of them and what's going on in the world. And one of the things I really feel like is going on for 2019, and if you even think about saying the words 2019, it's kind of cumbersome. You know, 2017 was even worse, but 2019 is it's still cumbersome. 2020 feels really good to say. I mean, say it out loud, 2020. It feels smooth. It feels like there's a smoothness to it. So this is sort of the storm before we get a little more calm next year. But this is a wrestling match this year. This is the time where people are supposed to be kind of churning and turning up all that stuff that's been hidden and dug under and heavy beneath all of that surface, and start looking at it and deciding, and I'm calling it the, again, the door of evolution, deciding, are we going to step through that door and step over that threshold of evolution? We have to consciously decide to do that. Now, I know I'm talking a long time this video, but it feels important that, everything that we are watching in the news right now, all of this churning, all of the sexism, the racism, the scandals, all of this stuff is part of that churning. It is part of kind of unearthing and turning up all of the stuff that needs to be dealt with, so we can consciously choose to move through that doorway of evolution for each and every one of those topics. So you have to look at your own life and think about, what is it that I am facing? What am I wrestling with? What is it that I'm tired of? That's the other thing that I tell people all the time is, we don't change unless we're tired enough of ourselves or our situations. That's our soul's way of saying, come on, get over it. Let's get on. Let's get through that doorway, because we have to be uncomfortable in order to grow. So, think about that. Think about what you're wrestling with and decide what you're willing to move forward through. And it could be a little teeny tiny thing, but every little teeny tiny thing gets you closer and closer to that doorway. And before you know it, you're going to be moved through that doorway and looking back going, oh, wait, I moved through that. So keep that ball rolling. Keep that awareness going. That conscious evolution piece of us is so important as we move through this stuff. And I'll keep you posted as I get closer to the end of this process with this office space. I keep turning that way because it's literally 150 feet away from me, the office that I'm going to buy. But it's been an interesting evolutionary process for me as well. And that's why I'm pushing forward. I know that when I buy this space and decorate it the way I need to and ground in that space, that this is a big part of my expansion and my alignment for the year, which was my theme that I came up with early in the year. But this is a huge symbol of me moving forward and expanding and aligning. But it's scary and it's uncomfortable and it's new. And so just because it's scary and uncomfortable and new does not mean that it is something I need to decide not to do. So move forward, think about that, process through it, peel back those layers, get very, and thank you for saying that. I've got a little comment here saying thank you for taking the time to guide us. I'm more than happy to do that. That's what I'm here for. And I like to bring it into the human condition because we think spirituality and soul is so far away from us, but it's so practical. We can bring the soul into being so practical and understanding what our evolution is about if we just kind of tease it apart and look at it in those ways. Because this is just down-to-earth stuff, even though it's very celestial and spiritual stuff at the same time. So our human condition is the fodder for growth. It is how we grow, but it's our soul condition that we are here to evolve. So think about that. The human condition stuff is just human condition stuff, but it's our soul's evolution that is behind each and every discomfort and each and every challenge and each and every wrestling match. So I hope you think about this. Take it into your day. If you don't feel like commenting today, come back and comment or go on my website and look at more of the information that's out there. I want to plug this too. My Recipe for Radiance book is coming out in just a few weeks. I just got the proof copy yesterday, so I'm very excited about that and ready to move forward. And so you'll be hearing more about that. And now that I know we can launch, we're launching. So that's another way of me moving forward and stepping into that next threshold of evolution. So let's do it. Let's do this evolution thing and let's do it together. And I hope you have a fabulous day. Take care. Bye-bye.